Today we're going to be reading some paranormal stories submitted by first responders. If you guys have any scary stories that you want to share with me or the community, I will have my subreddit linked down below. So this says, any stories from law enforcement or first responders? Out all hours of the night, constantly dealing with pain, suffering, and death. Anyone care to share? Story courtesy of my friend who worked at a juvenile detention center. There was one kid, maybe 14 or 15, who had been part of a gang initiation and killed someone. 2 days after the kid got to the center, he kept saying there was someone bothering him at night. Everyone thought he was full of crap until there was something on one of the cameras for that cell block. 3 a.m., there was a misty figure outside the kid's cell, and it looked like the figure was reaching through the bars. Only showed up on one camera, and the kid had a bruise on his face the next day that looked like he had been hit with a pipe. That's insane. Probably the person he killed coming back to haunt him. There was an incident from my hometown that made national news, and it made believers out of many. A young mom and her infant were driving home from a friend's house at night when she crashed her car, which ended upside down in a river. The following day, a fisherman saw the car and called emergency personnel. When law enforcement officials went down the embankment to the crash site, 4 different officers heard a distant voice calling, "Help me, help me." Hearing the voice caused them to work frantically to flip the car over and found the 18-month-old baby alive, strapped in the car seat hanging upside down. Based on LEA reports, it is estimated that the car had crashed 14 hours before. I still get chills when I pass the crash site. Oh my God. They said the mother died almost instantly from injuries sustained in the crash. The rescuers have no idea where that voice was coming from. Like, I swear she was saying, help me, so they would find the baby. Oh my God. That's heartbreaking. I had one call where we were doing CPR on an older gentleman. His wife is screaming that he can't be dead. He can't be dead. I look up and both my partner and I swear we saw him standing in the corner of the room watching us try and bring him back. He didn't make it, but holy hell, that was creepy. That is also just absolutely heart-shattering. I cannot imagine standing there. I would also be screaming like he can't be dead. Like, that's like the most horrific thing in the entire world to experience. I have a family member who's law enforcement. They said they get calls where the caller hangs up when the phone is answered, so they would go to the address, but it's an address where the house had burned down or where a tragedy happened and no one lives there anymore. And apparently it happens often. Not paranormal, but apparently sometimes people commit suicide and the family will come to the site and they just talk about wanting an inheritance and not even caring that a family member died. Wow. Okay. And those people should be in prison because they probably led that person to making that choice. So when are we going to do something about that? I'm a firefighter / EMT. About 10 years ago, I went on an MVA, motor vehicle accident, with my company. It was a pretty bad one, 2 people ejected. As I'm running up to the patients, I noticed a tarp on the ground with a couple of feet sticking out from under it. As I went to lift it to confirm that the person was dead, a police officer explained to me that the person under the tarp had catastrophic injuries to their head. Later on, when the coroner arrived, they pulled the tarp and it was very gruesome. A young woman had died right there. A few hours passed and the scene is cleaned up and cleared. All the first responders had left and the road was open again. I didn't explain much about it to my wife on the location or what happened, but we happened to be driving down that road later that night. As we approached the spot where that girl died, my wife lifts her eyes to the exact spot as we passed it and said, "That's where the girl died." I asked her how she knew and she said, "Because she's still there. Gives me chills every time I drive by that spot." What does she mean? What does she mean? Not law enforcement, but worked at a retirement home for midnight shift and often had EMS calls. One night around 2:30 a.m. had a police officer show up at the front door. Let them in. They said they had a dead air call from a room upstairs. That's a scary moment because dead air means they dialed in their sleep or dialed and then they died. The resident that was staying in the room that called has mobility issues, needs a scooter to get around, and a walker for shorter distances. So I thought the worst going up there. We get to her room and she's sound asleep in bed. Her home phone is across the room sitting on the charging port. Officer and I were both equally confused. We woke up the resident who had no clue why there was a police officer in her room. I checked the phone and there were no outgoing calls to 911 even listed. Officer and I even double checked to make sure the number was correct and everything. I had asked the officer and she said that sometimes they would get phantom calls from active phones. I was already convinced the building was haunted from previous experiences, but that really sold it for me. And I would quit on the spot. Not law enforcement, but military. I am not gonna say this right. I was in Djibouti? Sorry, I'm so sorry. In the camp, there's a really old graveyard by one of the towers. I was in such tower, chain smoking, until I saw someone walking through the graves. I called out on the radio, graveyard taped off, that I was gonna look and see. Got over there, figure hadn't moved. It's a poorly lit area of camp. I felt very lethargic and, dare I say, exhausted looking at it. I yell out, "Exit the graveyard, it's off limits." I shit you not, I blinked a couple times and there was absolutely no one near me. Whole walk back to the tower, I couldn't help but feel eyes on me. I couldn't sleep once I got off shift. Still very freaky. Very freaky. And of course, like a ghost in a graveyard, like fork found in kitchen. My buddy works as a corrections officer, and the prison he works at has a cell block that is known to be haunted. His most recent experience that he told me about is he was doing his rounds at night and checking on the inmates when he saw another figure in an inmate's cell. This particular cell only had one actual inmate at the time. When he got closer to it, the shadow figure disappeared. My buddy woke up the inmate and told him what he saw, and the inmate started praying furiously. If I was that inmate, I'd be like, and you did not have to tell me that. And I didn't need to know that my cell's haunted. I was blissfully unaware until you brought it to my attention. And I would also be praying because what the fuck? I work as a correctional officer. One night while working the graveyard shift, 12 a.m. to 8 a.m., I was assigned to watch an inmate on suicide watch. Basically a prisoner that wants to hurt themselves and they're placed under 24/7 surveillance to prevent that. It's me, the inmate, a supervisor, and one other person on the floor, and no one else. I hear banging and eerie noises in the hall. I call my partner and he's not in the area. The supervisor is passed out and the inmate's asleep. I kept hearing banging and wailing like someone was getting tortured until the morning. When I finally see my partner, he tells me the noises are normal and the building has bad memories. Bad memories is nuts. Also, if you heard moaning and wailing like somebody was being tortured, why didn't you go check it out? I understand that you're there to watch this guy, but also that sounds important to verify that nothing's going on. I am a retired corrections officer. We have a lot of corrections officers. I've seen things that would make anyone question their own sanity. At the risk of sounding crazy, I'll share a couple of incidents. 1. I witnessed a water bottle fly across the room as if somebody hit it with their hand. In this situation, we know that nobody was near it. There were no strings, etc. The trajectory was inconsistent with any natural cause. 2. Catholic religious medallion was pulled off my chest by an unknown force. I was brushing my teeth and I bent over the sink to spit, and when I stood straight, the medallion was off my chest as if being pulled. It popped off the chain and went directly down the drain. It's worth noting that the show Paranormal State was at the same location shortly after these two incidents occurred. They found that the grounds had a demon. Oh, nice. Okay. 3. Several days after an inmate passed away, I believe I saw him. Let me explain. I worked the special housing unit with another 5 officers. Sometimes after rounds, we would gather in the courtyard, mainly for officers to catch a smoke break. When we returned to control, one officer smelled a strong whiskey smell. I looked up and I saw smoke. I assumed that somebody was late in exhaling. As I looked at the smoke, it was a wispy form of a man. It was there briefly, but it was face to face with me. Goosebumps. I believe it was the deceased inmate whom I cut down from hanging, performed CPR for 47 minutes and sent him to the hospital with a heartbeat. He later passed in the hospital. Oh my god. I just can't even imagine that being my job. Having to experience stuff like that. I understand not every corrections officer ever has an experience like that. Having to cut a man down and give him CPR for 47 minutes. But I just can't imagine that happening to me and being able to continue doing that job. That shit sticks with you. One of the high schools here in my city had 2 teenage girls fall through a skylight in the gym one night. Both passed away from the injuries. A couple years later, I was talking to a police officer at our BJJ class. I was telling him how I work for the school district. He goes on to tell me how the police department gets calls throughout the night of different classroom lights getting turned on and off, specifically at the high school where the 2 girls passed away. He tells me that him or another officer has to go into the school, mind you it's a 3-story building, and check the classrooms for anyone that may have broken into the school. He said he gets chills every time he has to walk into that school and to never find evidence of anyone breaking in. That is horrific, and how the fuck did that happen? I was a guard for a while, and part of my job was sweeping a local department store after closing. The department store was located in a shopping mall. One night I was checking the chain gates that pull down and lock the store down from the rest of the mall. If you know these gates, they are fairly noisy and rattly when handled. They are. I checked the gate, secure, and start to walk away. I got about 20 feet and I heard the gate rattle. I looked back and saw nothing, so I thought nothing of it. Maybe the wind. I went around and checked the rest of the gates and doors and everything was fine. As I went to go to the office, I heard again a gate rattle. But this time it went on a little longer as if somebody was shaking it. I quickly ran down the aisle and crouched down, peeking around the corner at the gate. I fully expected to see someone there. My heart was pounding. It was 11 p.m. in the mall and all the shops had been closed for hours. I saw nothing. I sprinted to the office and locked myself in. I pulled up the security cameras and quickly rewound the video. There was absolutely nothing there at any point. I must have been tired. I finished my shift at 1 and went home. Not even an hour passed before I get a call on my cell. It's my chief saying there's an alarm that's been tripped at the mall and I need to go check it out. I'm kind of weirded out and mostly pissed that my sleep is interrupted. I got there to find the mall gate alarm tripped. I immediately locked myself inside the office and disarmed the alarms. The office is a secure, locked door next to an exit that leads directly outside. It's designed for quick escapes and to safely check out the store/mall from the cameras in case someone is there. I checked the whole building and I see nothing. I walked out to the mall and I'm shocked to see that the metal gate has been severely bent, as if somebody grabbed the bottom of the gate towards the middle and pulled with all of their strength. It's clearly bent and damaged and no longer secure. At this point, I am terrified people are in the building. I run to the office and review the footage of the gate since I had left, but something happens to the footage. It skips, goes static and blurry, and then refreshes. There's about 40 seconds unaccounted for, but the scariest part is I never saw anyone. That would be it for me. And I would call my chief, I'd say, you know what, actually you gotta come check this out because I quit. I was a cop for 15 years in North Philly, retired. Get a call one night around 3 or 4 a.m. for a person with a weapon/male unresponsive on LOC. It was about 10 years ago, so the details are a bit fuzzy, but I'll never forget the utter shit show I walked into. Upon arrival, my partner and I were met by a woman crying and clearly very shaken up, speaking Spanish. Neither myself nor my partner were able to understand exactly what was going on, but as we entered the home, the woman pointed to the stairway and quickly exited the home, barely able to hold herself together. Approaching the stairs, I could hear a male voice that sounded muffled yet forceful coming from the back bedroom. It wasn't English or Spanish, and the cadence was off-putting. I settled on the landing for about 10 seconds, attempting to gather whatever info I could before we climbed the last flight of stairs to the dimly lit second floor. As I'm approaching the landing, I see over the top step, about 20 feet away, a man's severed head at the center of a large, shoddily drawn circle. No crazy markings, no pentagrams, just a trail of blood leading from the head to the bathroom and the same man's voice reciting "Who the fuck knows?" The man exits the room, puts his hands up, turns around, and lays on his stomach, and he was arrested without incident. After the apprehension, we checked the crime scene to make sure it's safe for the techs to process. As I entered the bathroom, I saw the man's headless torso face up in the bathtub. He actually had a pair of really nice Jordan 4s on, but that's beside the point. What the fuck? Why does that matter? I don't usually follow up on cases until I get subpoenaed for court, but this one I did. Perhaps the strangest part of this strange experience was that the man who committed the murder, never arrested, worked full-time, was a former youth minister, and had no history of mental illness and a clean toxology. Not even a beer in his system, and he was declared fit for trial by 4 doctors. 2 were independent. Fast forward 13 months and his trial is starting. As I get called to testify, I enter the courtroom, and the moment I put my hand to the Bible to swear in, he begins reciting the hymn. The same one from that night. Weirdest thing I've seen in 15 years, working in one of the most volatile areas in the country. That wasn't the reason I left the police department, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't help me out the door. No, because I'm like genuinely so curious why. Why did he do it? This was 3 years ago. I was a police officer in a small town for a short time, and 2 weeks after I started, I was called by my chief and told there was a dead body and that would be good training. I ran home, changed into my 30 pounds of gear, and headed over to the scene. I pulled up and my chief walked me around to the back of the house. We could see a foot motionless in the hallway. Ran around to the front and drilled out the lock, and immediately we could smell death. Went inside and saw him laying on the floor. He had been there for a month. After opening all the windows and me dry heaving a bit, we waited for the coroner to show up and remove him. After we searched the home for guns, drugs, anything illegal/legal that needed to be removed, I was in the basement searching through some boxes, and out of the corner of my eye, I could see the hollow black shape of a person blocking out the sunlight coming in through the window. It looked like they were turned to the side, looking over their right shoulder. As I turned to talk, thinking it was the chief, they disappeared in front of me. I said nope and left the house, finding the chief outside waiting for me. I never told anyone I worked for, with the fear of having to retake my psychological test or be straight up fired. No, no, no. The shadow figure of the man that's dead upstairs. Fuck that. I used to work in decontamination services at my local hospital. On the night shift, there are only 2 people on shift. On this one night, me and my colleague were bored while working at our separate stations in the same room, and we start talking about a girl who used to work there but had passed away on holiday as she fell over a balcony. These stations we were working at were benches with shelves above them, which had open boxes of supplementaries, I don't know, that were added to the trays, i.e. cotton, wool, balls, prep sponges, etc. As we were talking about the girl, a box on the shelf above me flew off and hit the wall behind me. Scared the crap out of us. We went for a decent break after that to go calm down. And she's like, don't talk about me, and stop talking about me. I was a security guard, if that counts. Before I was transferred to a site where I had to deal with criminal activity, there were 2 employees that killed themselves in the basement. What? So one night, I decided to stupidly fool around with a ghost app on my phone, thinking that iPhone ghost apps were fake in the basement. As I was playing around with the ghost app, I saw the words, "Go away," and from what I remember, I dumbly decided to linger. Thinking that nothing had happened, I went home and I went to sleep. I got word from my neighbors saying that I was yelling around with a different voice, as if somebody took over my body. I immediately went to church over the next few days to make sure the spirits got out of my body. Ever since then, I have never gotten possessed. That was the most short. Like, you brushed over the fact that you were possessed. Like, I just don't even understand. The way you wrote that was like it was not a big deal. Like, you stubbed your fucking toe. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7 lines of text for a possession? Oh my god. And somebody replied and was like, what the fuck? Did your neighbors tell you if you were walking around in your place or outside? That doesn't sound like former employees. Like, those are demons. But also, yeah, like your neighbors hearing you screaming? You must have been loud as hell and like different voices. I'm so sorry you brushed over this so fast. I work in a hospital and have multiple stories. I also work night shift in an ICU. Here's 2 stories. A patient, elderly woman, was passing, and while she was passing, she was alone. So a few of the nurses and a doctor were in the room with her as she passed. Her nurse that took care of her was holding her hand as she took her last agonal breath. As soon as her HR flatlined, the lights in her room started to flicker in and out slowly for a good 20 to 30 seconds. Once we had a guy who wasn't doing so well. His family said he liked old school reggae. He was in a comatose state. I don't remember if he died or not because it was so long ago. Each room had a personal computer to assist in charting. It also had Spotify. Out of nowhere, one evening, Spotify came on. The computer wasn't in use, nor was Spotify signed into, and old school reggae was playing on blast. That's like amazing, but also so sad. But like amazing. Okay, last one. My dad's old flat he had when I was 13 to 15 was weird. I'm pretty sure the previous person had died in there, but pretty sure it was from old age. They left a cane inside the cupboard, which we kept in there for some reason. Maybe they didn't like that their home was occupied. These are the strange things that happened there. 1. I would always be the first person awake and would always feel like I'm being watched, especially through the cracks in the doors. 2. My dad's bedroom door would swing open during the night even though it was completely shut. 3. In the flat, I had a nightmare that I had voices in my head telling me to hang myself so I could be with my loved ones. Oh my god. They skipped number 4, so this is 5, I guess. I also had 2 other separate nights where I was being strangled in my sleep. One of the nights I woke up with my own hands around my neck. 6, 5. The most freaky one for me, I was sitting on my bed with the door pushed to... I don't know what that means. On FaceTime with my friend. In the middle of my sentence, something caught my eye, so I glanced up. What I saw was a human-sized black shadow, but it was in the middle of the room, not against anything, so in no way could it have been a shadow, slowly coming towards my way. Bear in mind, my curtains were closed and the light was on. I could see everything very clearly. I instantly buried my head in my duvet and screamed at the top of my lungs. I could hear my friend asking what had happened, still on the phone, with me hyperventilating. My dad burst into the room and asked me what was wrong. I then looked up, saw nothing out of the ordinary, and burst into tears telling him what I had just seen. These weren't my only paranormal encounters as a child. Ghosts and entities seem to be drawn to my dad's side of the family, as they've all had some very creepy and strange encounters, especially my grandparents. Unfortunately, I haven't had any since my teenage years ended. Unfortunately, that is the most fortunate thing I've read in this whole thread. That's all I'm gonna read for now. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys have any scary stories, whether they are paranormal or like a real life encounter with like a stalker or a creepy person, whatever, any scary story that you have, if you want to share it with me and the community, I will have my subreddit linked down below. I'm gonna ramble a tiny bit at the end of this. The rambles are so bad. But if you don't care, I'm gonna go. I love you guys so much. I will see you in the next one. Bye. I just wanted to do a quick ramble to say thank you guys so much for joining my channel memberships. It genuinely, like, okay, this is so stupid, but like when I launched the channel memberships, I did not expect to get like an influx of like people joining. I know that even $10 or $5, whatever the case may be, hi Nana, hi Nana, I know that that's not doable for everybody. Like, I myself like struggle sometimes with money, and I just appreciate it like so much. I don't even think I could accurately put into words. Like, the smile I had on my face when I refreshed and just saw like the first couple people joining, I was like, this is like, I don't know. I'm just so grateful for you guys, like, forever and always. I'm gonna have some like varsity videos and JV shorts going up. This is like filmed probably a couple weeks. Nanar, stop. Or like this is going up a couple weeks after the channel memberships even launched, because I like to be ahead on my videos a certain amount. But anyways, I already have some members only videos and stuff that I'm really excited to upload. Nar, stop! I'm just really excited, and I'm so very grateful. Like, I hope you know that. For those of you that are unable to join my channel memberships for whatever reason that may be, I'm still gonna try to do these little rambles at the end of my videos. Just tell you guys like the stupid little things that I have. Shorter little stories if I do have them, or just me like thanking you for being amazing as per usual. Nar is like freaking out right now. But that's all I had to say for this video. That's the end of the rambles. I know that's kind of lame, like but I don't really have anything to tell you, so I'm gonna go. I love you so much. Okay, see ya.